Lovely to see you all. You having a good time?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's put an end to that, shall we?
So, I was fortunate enough to meet you in Houston, which was a great show.
Was? I went to NASA.
Oh, did you like it?
I got to go to NASA. That was brilliant. I love NASA.
So, 30 plus years later, we have this huge crowd, autographs, everything. Did you ever think back when you initially decided to step into the TARDIS that it would still be going this strong and this incredible with the fan base?
To be honest, I didn't actually give it a moment's thought. I just got on with it. I remember when I was being, well, not so much interviewed, I'd been offered the part, but the head of BBC One wanted to meet me to make sure I was the right sort of person. And fortunately, he liked cricket, and so did I, so he talked about cricket for half an hour. That's the kind of job interview I like. And at the end, the only thing he wanted to be at pains to make me realise was that I was buying into something that meant I would be having to talk about it for the next 40 years. And he was entirely right. It's 30 years and still going. But to be honest, I never thought I would be spending as much time in America and Australia and now Europe. I was in Sweden last week. I'll be in Germany in a couple of months' time. Doctor Who is spreading like the plague. The whole world is being infected. And this last year, I haven't had time to do any acting because I've been busy attending events like this. Who'd have thought that? It's brilliant. So thank you, all of you.
So you had the job interview. It was all about cricket, which sounds like my kind of job interview. What was your thought when you first saw Pat Godfrey's costume design, which is now iconic costume design for your doctor?
Well, John Nathan Turner, who was the producer when I did the show, he offered me the part and he said, go away and have a think about what you'd like to wear. And I'd seen what Peter had worn. And I remember thinking, why does he have to wear a costume? Why can't he wear clothes? None of you are wearing costumes. Well, some of you are. Yeah. Got that wrong. In normal life, most people don't wear costumes, they wear clothes. And I thought the doctor should wear clothes. Just anything. And who else, other than the doctor, wears the same thing every day? I guess priests do, but not many people wear the same thing every day, you know, in downtime and work. Anyway, after much thinking, I thought, I'd like to wear something, and then what I described was almost exactly what Christopher Eccleston got 20 years later. It struck me the doctor might probably want to meld into the background occasionally, just not be seen, to get on with whatever it was he wanted to do. So I suggested all black, nice long coat that you could wrap yourself in. And what did they give me? An explosion in a rainbow factory. The only consolation was I was on the inside looking out. The rest of you had to look at it. I guess the guy on the front row wouldn't have minded. I like that shirt. So you have to bear in mind it was the 1980s. And the 1980s was the time of what they call glam rock. And you see some of the things that the rock stars were wearing, and my costume looks quite tame by comparison. So it's like all the Doctor Who costumes are a reflection of the era and the programme was made. But I wish I had... The only good thing... excuse me. The only good thing about it was, 30 years later, when the BBC has finally got merchandising right, and not only have they got it right, they're going for broke with it. There's so much stuff now. Back in the 80s, there was hardly anything, and what there was rubbish. But now they've got these brilliant little figures of the doctors. You know, they little figures you can buy, and they actually look like the doctors they're supposed to represent. And the one that sells the most, because kids are the ones who are buying them, is the colourful one. At last, old 60 is appreciated.
One last question before I turn it over to the audience. I have to ask, me personally. I'm a celebrity, get me out of here.
No, you're not. Yeah, do all you people know about that programme?
Yeah.
It's a programme on British television which is on once a year. Just finished this year. It's on for about 3 weeks, every night, at peak viewing hours, 9 till 10:30. And a couple of guys called Anton Deck, who are two young, well, not so young now, but young guys who are the kind of cream presenters of BBC, of UK television, have this programme, and they shove 14 celebrities into the jungle in Australia, miles from anywhere, surrounded by 100 cameras, and you have to survive. You have to do challenges to get food, otherwise you get a cupful of rice and a cupful of beans every day to live on. And the challenges are vile and impossible, like crawling through tunnels full of spiders, eating the eyes and unmentionable bits of animals. And fortunately, I never had to eat camels. But I did have to eat a possum's anus, which I have to admit was rather chewy. And why do we do it? Well, they pay us a lot of money. But I did it in 2012, and I'm glad I did it, because you really are cut off. You haven't got a clue what's going on in the rest of the world. They do come in twice a day to change your batteries on your microphones, and occasionally to take you out to do something else. But no one will speak to you. You can't find out anything, and you can't... A lot of viewers in Britain think, when they're finished filming, we're off to the hotel. Oh, no, you're not. So it was... and then you're voted out week by week. I lasted halfway through. I was beaten by a pussycat doll. When I say I was beaten by a pussycat doll, I'm talking about she did better than I did in the programme. Yes, you understand what I'm saying. But it is a remarkable programme, because, you know, I was in there with a former heavyweight champion of the world, a pussycat doll, actors, singers, a world champion darts player, and you're all thrown together and have to get on. And you've got no books, no radio, no television. You just have to talk to each other and do these tasks. And it doesn't make you value the things you have and take for granted. So I'm glad I did it, even though I was far too old to do it. But so it's just finished this time, and a guy called Foggy, who was the world motorcycling champion 5 years running, he won this year.
Fantastic. Now I'll turn it over to the audience for questions. Yeah, right here.
My name's Audrey.
Hi, Audrey. Good old Audrey.
Just out of curiosity, you're the first actor that actually got to portray a part in a previous episode prior to becoming the Doctor. Not only that, but you got to shoot your predecessor. Advancement through assassination. At what point after that were you notified that you were going to actually be the next Doctor?
Well, it's quite interesting, because my agent rang me up and said, you've been offered a part in Doctor Who. This was 1982, 81, something like that. And I said, oh dear, that's a shame. He said, why? I said, because I read somewhere that when they're casting Doctor Who himself, they never choose someone who's been in the show before. You know, it's a kind of no-no. And my agent said, well, they're not going to offer you Doctor Who, are they? I'm still with him. Amazing, isn't it? I said, well, yeah, I suppose you're right. And it was 3 episodes, and it fitted in exactly with something else I was doing. So, and the money was all right, so I said, yes, all right, I'll do it. And because I did it, I got offered Doctor Who. Because I played a character called Maxil, who was basically a glorified guard. He was the head of the guard on Gallifrey, who had to arrest Peter's doctor and shoot him. Well, I'm a great believer. I mean, as I look at all you people now, each one of you is in your world looking at me. So you are the main character in your story. So there's, you know, 500 main characters out there. And I thought that in his story, Maxil was the main character. And this doctor was an irritant, a bit part player. So I adopted a persona for Maxil, which the producer, when he came, every show you do, you rehearsed it in those days. It's quite different now, like a play. So you do the whole thing. So you present it as a 45-minute play to the producer and other people who walk around looking at you in a hall not unlike this, before you go to the studio to record it. And at the end of it, he came up to me and said, "Are you under the impression that this show is called Maxil?" I said, "No." I said, "What's it called?" I said, "Doctor Who." He said, "Could you allow Peter a little of the screen, please?" I said, "Well, he's got to fight for it," I said. But we laughed about it, and I heeded his advice, and I just gave Peter a bit of rope to hang himself with. I am joking, I love Peter. But I just adopted a character for Maxil who was very arrogant, businesslike, matter of fact, and clearly regarded the Doctor as a worm. So I was doing things like raising my eyes to heaven whenever he spoke, and I stopped doing some of that. But the end result was that about 2 months later, I was at a wedding. It was the girl who was the assistant floor manager on that show, and she'd invited me because we got on well. And I was there with my wife, and John Nathan Turner was also there. And it was one of those days when everybody was happy and on form, and I was chatting a lot, and I got on really well with JNT, as we called him. And he says that on that afternoon, he'd been told that week that Peter was leaving, he decided he wanted me to take over. And I was I think the only Doctor who didn't have to do a screen test, and I was just offered the part, which was fantastic. I had to be approved by the head of BBC One, which I told you about. And the Doctor you saw was the result of that. Clearly he saw me as an arrogant, opinionated, but ultimately soft-hearted, which, for those of you who've listened to the Big Finish audios and seen the journey of the Doctor finished, which I was... See, when they asked me right at the beginning, how long would you like to play the Doctor? I said, I would like to beat Tom Baker's record. And had I looked up at that moment, I would have seen Monty Python's foot. Trembling with delight as it waited, as it finally did 3 years later, to go splat to that ambition. Foolhardy on me, but I was excited, and I knew what a wonderful part it was, and I wanted to grab it with both hands. But we had a game plan, which was to peel back layers of the onion that my Doctor was, and we only got back a couple of layers by the time that Michael Gray decided it was time for a new Doctor. So that plan was thwarted. But the Big Finish audios, if you can bring yourselves to purchase and listen to them, allow my Doctor to finish his... How many of you are Big Finish listeners? Not enough! Big Finish is brilliant. I think it's doing better Doctor Who than you might see elsewhere. Nobody's going to quote me, I hope. And it's not just because of my Doctor Who, but Paul does them. One of Paul's stories won an award in Britain last year. What's it called?
Pardon? Dark Eyes.
Dark Eyes, thank you. And I listened to it, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant. The writing, because I mean, the advantage, excuse me, of doing things on audio is I look the same as I did in 1983. The monsters are scary. Even my costume's changed in audio. I've got a blue costume now. And if someone on audio says, "That is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," each one of you listening to it has your own picture. So there's not 90% of the audience going, "Well, I don't think she's all that." And 10% saying, "Whoa." On audio, beautiful people are beautiful. Scary things are really scary. I just love it as a medium. And I have done, 40, 50, 60 maybe, Big Finish audios now. Fully cast, 2-hour dramas with post-production, which is stunning. And it's taken my doctor in all sorts of directions I was never allowed to do on screen, including all those lost stories that weren't done because they would have been too expensive, like The Space Whale. Think about it. The BBC in 1980 doing The Space Whale. It might have looked a little dodgy. On audio, it's brilliant. So I can't recommend them highly enough. If you haven't tried them, try one. Doesn't have to be my doctor. Even one of Sylvester's if you must. Speaking of which, I gather he pretends to be a doctor. Did you see me regenerate?
No.
Did anybody see me regenerate? You may have seen Sylvester McCoy lying in my costume, but that does not a regeneration make. Therefore, I am still the doctor. He may have started a new line of false doctors, of which he was the first, and we now have the 6th. And interestingly, the 6th is always the best.
Yeah, right back here.
Yeah. Well, first of all, somebody had photoshopped you into Chris Eccleston's costume, and I gotta say, damn! It's pretty good looking.
Well, have you seen the ones where they've photoshopped him into mine? I have to say, it makes mine look better.
But on the subject of Big Finish, that unfortunately we lost Maggie Staples this year.
Ah, yeah.
And I know she was quite a character. I was just wondering if you had any good stories about her.
Oh, she was just a lovely lady. A lot of people, and with very good reason, think she was my ideal companion. Because, what's the companion's name? Evelyn Smythe. Couldn't think of it. Evelyn Smythe was a lecturer in history at Oxford University, I think, when I come storming in. And I take her, the first story with her, I took her off to meet Queen Elizabeth I. And it's just a brilliant story and a brilliant character. And she was ideal for my doctor because she was very bright and took no nonsense and put me in my place. And old Sixie was very, very fond of her. And there was a particular story I remember, Arrangements for War, if anyone remembers that one. It was one of the most moving ends to an audio I've ever heard. She's just such a lovely lady. She came to acting late. She'd been a teacher for years and retired and thought she might take up acting and did really well. And going to her funeral this year was one of the saddest things I've done. She'd been ill for a little while, so for her it was a release. But she was such a smashing lady, and she made an iconic companion for my doctor. Sadly missed.
And back in the back.
I know that you were interested in being in the 50th anniversary episode. Did anyone ever bring up the possibility of bringing back Axel for that episode, seeing as it's taking place on Valentine's?
I suppose you know we were interested in being in the 50th anniversary because of a certain half-hour programme you may have seen. Five-ish doctors. In a way, that did reflect truth, that programme, because we did keep ringing each other up saying, have you been asked? Well, neither have I. And it was only when it became absolutely clear that we weren't going to, that Peter wrote the Five-ish Doctors, which for those of you who haven't seen it, I would strongly recommend. It's the only thing I've done related to Doctor Who that I've watched more than 2 or 3 times, I suppose. I watched my Doctor Who's when they went out, just to make sure I wasn't a complete idiot, and realised that I was. And then when I had to do the audio commentaries, I watched them again. But other than that, it's not what I sit down and watch. But Five-ish Doctors, I have enjoyed. I've watched it half a dozen times now, and it still makes me laugh. It's a great tribute to Peter Davison, who conceived the idea. No, to answer your question, nobody suggested Maxwell came back, no. And I think I would have said no anyway. I'm not going to go back and play Maxwell in the 50th anniversary. I played Babe the Berserker. Blake 7 he was.
Yes, right here.
His little Bo Peep. Or something like that.
So what characteristics of your Doctor do you see being portrayed in Peter Capaldi's? Because they're very similar.
Yes, it has been pointed out that the characteristics that some people derided in my Doctor are now being applauded in Peter Capaldi's. That one of intolerance, of arrogance, of being unapproachable, being a bit difficult, being patronising, all those things sit very well on him, I think. I like it. As I say, every 6 Doctors, they get it right. And I just love the way he's playing the part. The stories, maybe not quite so wonderful, which is a shame, because I think he's a superb Doctor. But that one about the guy under the bed, you know, some monster under the bed. Well, what was it? You know, we saw it. Have you seen that episode? Well, they're in the window talking about it, and something comes up behind them. What was it? They've never been told. When I'm watching Doctor Who, I don't want to see Twin Peaks. I liked all that in Twin Peaks. The thing I loved about Twin Peaks was that you didn't know what the hell was going on. And that was a virtue. But in Doctor Who, there's too much not knowing what's going on now. I like a more linear storyline, like they had in my days. But I think Peter is fantastic, because he's like me.
Young man?
Was it fun being the Sixth Doctor?
Was it fun being the 6th Doctor?
Yeah! It was. It was just great fun. I remember coming home the first night I'd played the 6th Doctor in the studio. I came home and my wife was sitting there reading in our sitting room. And I came in and I spread my arms wide and I said, "I am the Doctor." And she said, "That's nice, dear. Could you put the rubbish out?" She keeps me grounded.
And in the back, yes.
First off, thank you for coming to Houston earlier this year. You performed, you were a blast.
Thank you.
And also, are any of you, I heard a rumor there might be a sequel to the Five-ish Doctors. Is it true?
It's true that we would happily do one, but we are determined that if we do the Five-ish Doctors Part 2, it must be as good or better than the first one. We don't want to do it and have people say, "Oh, I prefer the first one." So it needs to have an idea to propel the story, because that was such a strong idea. 3 actors trying to get into the series. They've been callously disregarded it for an anniversary programme. Quite how one would better that is hard to imagine. But I know that Peter and Sylvester are both up for it, because we worked well together, I thought. It was like seeing the Three Stooges. Or it was just a chemistry which was fantastic.
I like the old man band came up with that.
And my poor daughters have been forced to watch Doctor Who. They still haven't. I remember when he came back, because when I was playing the Doctor, only my oldest daughter was alive, and she was only 3 or 4. So when he came back in, what year was it, 2005? I had 4 daughters, ranging in age from 20 down to 12. And Doctor Who came back, and it was on television, and they watched an episode, and one of them suddenly said, "Hang on a minute, isn't that what you did?" Yes. Because I've been giving them these DVDs for years going, "Would you like to..." No, VHS they would have been. "Would you like to watch this?" No. And suddenly I got respect in my own home. What? You were Doctor Who? Like Christopher Eccleston? Yes, but a bit before him. You weren't just a bit part. No! I was the Doctor. Oh. Only one of the 4 daughters actually watched it. There you go. That's the way it should be.
So speaking of the 5-ish Doctors, just tell me when you guys get together that Paul McGann has to pick up the tab or the first pint.
No, he doesn't.
Next question.
Speaking of the 5-ish Doctors, I really enjoyed watching it, but you can't get it on DVD anywhere. If there is...
You can.
You can?
It is an extra on the Matt Smith limited edition final series DVD.
Well, maybe we can encourage the BBC to put that out along with the second edition. But I actually had another question, which was, I heard that during your time as the Doctor, there was a strike at the BBC, and that affected the programming schedule and everything else. And how do you think that has affected how you're perceived or how well known your Doctor was?
Oh, I don't think there was much. It delayed one studio, and it disrupted the filming schedules, but we got everything done that we were supposed to do. I think Sylvester's time was more affected. I think there was another strike during Sylvester's time as a Doctor as well. That was in the days when strikes were allowed. Nowadays, they're not allowed, and everyone gets paid a pittance. But the unions were very strong when I was doing it. So, you know, at 10 o'clock exactly at night, the studio would shut down, irrespective of whether you'd finished filming or not. And the overtime, if they carried on, was crippling. So, very often you didn't get stuff finished and had to carry it over to the next day.
2 tea breaks every day.
Yeah.
Yes,
But no, it didn't affect the...
Okay, good. Thank you.
right here.
If you've watched any of the reboot, is there any members or characters from the reboot that you wish you would have gotten to work with as Doctor?
Are there any characters that...
Any characters or cast members that you thought would have been fun to work with?
Oh, loads, yeah. I love the adipose. and the... Because I could do with losing a few adipose myself. And, who are the ones that farted? The Slitheen. Oh, I could have had great fun working with the Slitheen. But there are some brilliant inventions. I think one of the greatest is the silence. And that is spooky.
The what?
The silence.
The what?
Audrey, good one. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I think Stephen Moffat is a genius in creating scary stories. I genuinely believe that one of the best, if not the best story ever, is The Empty Child and the Doctor Dances. kids with the gas masks. Every school in Britain, the next day, there were kids going around saying, "Are you my mummy?" Because it was really scary. And the one thing they've got right now is terrifying children witless, which is what Doctor Who ought to do. He got a bit too safe. You know, we ought to have like the Talons of Wen Chiang. In the old days, that was really scary. That little dummy, whoa, dummies are always scary. But, you know, the kids with gas marks welded to their faces, ooh, that's scary. And there are lots of other incidents. The weeping angels would be scary unless they had a decent doctor facing them. Oh, come on! That little lad in the striped suit doesn't even know you can switch eyes. You don't have to blink, you just cross-wink. And the angels will be going, bugger, 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 but they can't get you. Easy. Or wear shades, they won't be able to see.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, I just had a question on your thoughts on back in the classic Doctor Who's, where he was just an unknown traveler who went out and helped out, versus in the modern one where they kind of morphed the character into a Roman superhero. What your thoughts were on how they did that?
Yeah, I've never heard it put that way before. I don't see it as that much different, to be honest.
Not so much in the current Doctor, but the previous two, in a lot of episodes, it was just kind of everybody knows the Doctor, because Planet knows the Doctor.
Yeah, I agree with you that is different. I quite like the old, who was that masked stranger routine that you used to get with, you know, the Lone Ranger, who ride into town, nobody knows who he is, very suspicious of him. By the time he leaves, he's their saviour. And who was that? Which is kind of gone. Everyone does know the Doctor now. He mixes with prime ministers. I'm not sure, to be honest. Because I'm still on the inside, even though I'm not, it's harder to be objective. Tell me what you think.
No, I just didn't like it. I liked more, he came in, nobody knew who he was, and it just seems now it was the opposite. I haven't watched the most current series, but a couple Doctors ago, that's...
And the trouble is, it's so Earth-centric now. You know, so you have episodes where Big Ben is crashed into, and everybody, of course, in future stories in London, knows about that, and knows about the Doctor, and knows what happened. So you've got the whole world knowing who the Doctor is. Yes, I agree. I mean, I've thought about it in those terms, but I prefer it when that's not the case, and also when we go somewhere other than the Earth. Let's go to Varos or a Varos equivalent, because the best stories, from my point of view, that I did were Vengeance on Varos, which I loved, Revelation of the Daleks, none of which took place on Earth. And we need more Davros too. The proper Davros, my Davros. Like my Cybermen. Rather than these great clumpy things they've got now. My Cybermen were closer to men. Now they're so cyber, who cares?
Go ahead, please.
I've always had a question about a part of your costume that I just, and some of the other Doctors, is this question mark on the, to me that always seemed more like a Batman thing.
I didn't like that either. It's the program being self-referential. It's being self-conscious. It's talking about it as a program, not about a character. The character would not. Well, it's hard to imagine a character who would want to wear any of that stuff. And as I say, it's a shame. Even David, even though he had something remotely modernish in terms of clothing, it was still more costume-like. I just love it if it was, you know, it could be any one of you guys sitting there what he was wearing, except you wouldn't be wearing a Doctor Who t-shirt. So I agree with you. Yeah, and it got even sillier. This was one of John Nathan Turner's mistakes, I think, because Sylvester, I think he had them tattooed on him, didn't he? He had question marks everywhere, all over his jumper. It's just too kind of, aren't we being clever about the programme-ish?
Yes, right here.
I'm so glad that you're here and I can finally ask you this question.
Ooh! It wasn't me!
Well, this year was just huge for Doctor Who, obviously, and the biggest portion of it reminded me of the one line that you made, and it's, to me, iconic of the entire series, which is, "I'm the Doctor, whether you like it or not." That was so brilliant, and I would remind all Whovians that went through their thing this summer, of that line. So I was wondering, can you take us back a little bit, what it was like when you first took on the role, and what motivated the power behind that line? Because that was just, it was written, but you delivered it. So can you tell us a little bit about that transition?
I remember that day very well, because it was the final day of shooting on Caves of Androzani, which is now widely regarded as one of the best stories ever made. And then I came along and spoiled everything. But we had about 10 minutes to record that small scene with myself and Nicola. And it was kind of, not make or break, but I knew that everyone would be watching that forensically. And I quite liked that line. I must confess I haven't looked ahead and seen the possibility of people not liking my Doctor. I was quite naive back then. I thought anyone who liked the programme liked all the Doctors. I didn't realise that a lot of people have pecking orders and insist on saying to you, "You're my 8th favourite Doctor." Which they do. No one's actually said yet, "You're my 12th favourite Doctor." But they got pretty close to that. I had one today, said, "You're my 3rd favourite Doctor." I said, "Oh, thank you." I mean, it's quite nice to be, have 9 others below one, but I hate the whole favourite thing. And I fell out with the Doctor Who magazine over that, because they insist on having these polls. Name your favourite Doctor. And if you do that, it goes 1 to 12. And there's going to be a 12. And several thousand people maybe have voted for that number 12. But their votes are, this last time it was me. I was number 12. And it does hurt. It does hurt. And you know that you did your best. And from my point of view, maybe it's understandable that I would say, just like the programme and don't necessarily, but I think I feel the same, even if people said I was number 1, because I feel for the other guys. Can't we just celebrate rather than, grade? It's like being back at school. You're bottom of the class. While I was doing it, I was really happy, and I just loved it. Because I knew how I wanted to play my Doctor, and I wanted him to be a little difficult to get a handle on. I wanted him to be surprising, and it was quite brave because we discussed it, and when it was aired in Britain, televised, it was that episode, and it went straight into Twin Dilemma. So they saw the regeneration. The next week, Twin Dilemma started. And at the end of Twin Dilemma, it broke, finished for 9 months. So people did have a slight chance of seeing what my Doctor was like. But at the end of Twin Dilemma, I was still being affected by the whole regeneration thing. And my Doctor was not very likeable. And we wanted to do that. We wanted people to... I've always said my favourite character in fiction is Darcy in Pride and Prejudice. Because for the majority of that book, you think he's a ghastly individual. And right by the end, you realise he's the only truly decent person in the story. He's got such honour, and he doesn't care what other people think of him, because he wants to do what's right. And that's what I fancy for my Doctor. And as I've said, the Big Finish stories have enabled me to finish that arc and do that. But perhaps it was too brave. Perhaps we should have hit the ground being likeable. But thank you for shaking your head, because I'm glad we did it that way. It was honest.
Right over here, please.
Are you asking to say which doctors I like? Well, I'm not going to grade them, but for me, the man who did the hard job was Patrick Troughton. Because if that first regeneration hadn't been as good as it was, he was phenomenal. He turned the character on a pinhead and danced off in a quite different direction. And it was a direction which was just charming, beguiling, disarming, and like a cosmic hobo, he's been called. And I loved him as a man. And if he hadn't done as well as he did, we wouldn't be here talking about Doctor Who now, because William Hartnell and him would have been the end of it. So for that reason alone, I'll put William Hartnell right up there. But every other Doctor I've seen, I've thought, wow, you're good. It's like asking me, it's a bit like saying, I've got 4 daughters. Would you rank them in order in which you like them, please? Well, who the hell would do that? So why do we have to do it with the Doctor? So the reason you don't see interviews from Doctor Who magazine with me is because they insist on doing that.
Right here.
Which of the latest companions do you think would work well with your Doctor?
Ooh.
Like maybe Captain Jack or...
Captain Jack and I would have been very entertaining. He'd have probably wanted my costume. And I would probably have gladly given it to him. Yes, of course you can have it. Bye. Yeah, do you know, every single one of them. I'm trying to think who they are. I certainly want to go... That's the other thing I don't like about the new Doctor Who, is the lovey-doveyness that goes on. I don't want my Doctor falling for girls. He's above all that. He's an alien. It's kind of distasteful. You know, it's like falling in love with a sheep. You know, just because they look the same doesn't mean they are the same. You know, you humans to the Doctor are like orangutans, so, you know, the Doctor having a relationship with his companion. No, thank you. In my day, John Nathan Turner had a maxim which was, no hanky-panky in the TARDIS. And I wish they'd stuck with that. All that emotional nonsense.
Would you like to see the Valiant come back in theater?
Oh, I like the Valiard, yeah. Yeah, I think he'd be brilliant. And especially if it was Michael Jaston, because he's such a good actor and such a nice man. I did some big finishes with him recently. I don't know if he's been released yet, but the Valiard is on trial and the Doctor defends him. I love that. That's real Doctor's character, that is. Yeah, it's... yeah, good idea. Bring the Valiard back. Excellent.
Yeah, right here.
Speaking of the Big Finish audios, you were saying some of the newer stories, you're not so sure about the writing and the monsters. One of my favorites is Jubilee.
Not the Big Finish.
Right.
The Big Finish, I'm really happy.
In the reboot.
Yeah.
In Big Finish, one of my favorite stories is Jubilee.
Yeah.
What's...
Well, they changed the story, didn't they?
Yes.
On television.
Jubilee's better.
I agree. Not because I was in it, but because I much preferred the idea, because Christopher Eccleston's Doctor was consumed with hatred for that last Dalek. And whereas my Doctor, even though it was a Dalek, felt compassion for it, and that it was the last one and it was being treated in such a vile way. And it made, from his point of view, made us as bad as the Dalek. And I found that a much more interesting story to tell. Why they changed it, I've no idea.
Other than that, what's one of your favorite Big Finish stories or monsters?
On Big Finish, I've enjoyed the ones I've done with Davros. Because after all, Davros is the guy who invented the Daleks. And he is a kind of character a bit like, I know the Master was originally, but he's a bit like Holmes and Moriarty, the Doctor and Davros in some of the Big Finish stories. There's one where Davros is, I can't remember whether he's in cryogenic suspension, but anyway, he's brought back in order to run the economy of Earth, because they need someone who is clever enough to do it. And Davros is perceived to be that man. And the Doctor, who is deeply suspicious of him, is forced to cooperate with him in order to help Earth. And it's a brilliant story of duplicity. And there's another one where we change places, the other Davros story. He becomes me and I become him. And that's a story I always wanted to do, the old switcheroo. So I love that. And another one I did recently was my evolved Doctor meeting my just regenerated Doctor. And it was quite interesting to play against myself and to be playing both parts at once. And I am assured, listening to it, that they do sound both very different, even though they're both me, which proves that my Doctor has made a journey, which delighted me. But every new story that comes in, I love it. I just love doing it. It's long may it continue.
Yeah, back here in the back.
So my girlfriend and I have become new Louisians just within the last year. Watching a special with all the doctors, you know, the Ultimate Companion Guide. The one doctor that stuck out was you. You are our classic doctor. This is also our first con. So when we found out that you were coming, we decided to come here. Hands down, found a way to get here, time off, drove here a couple hours. But with that, though, are you running into a lot more newer companions or newer Ubians that have not seen the show that are jumping on board with the former doctors that are starting to just fall in love with the former doctors the way we have?
Yeah, thank you for that. That's that's really heartwarming. Yes, I'm meeting an awful lot of people who have come to the old guys through the new guys, which is wonderful, which is why I find myself doing much more convention attending now than I was 10 years ago, because the programme is reborn, and it's been beautifully reborn. I mean, I can't knock it at all. Russell T. Davies has done a phenomenal job in getting the programme back. And he deserves every plaudit. In a way, I wish he was still running it, but that's another matter. Because he's so good. And he was a kind of exuberant fanboy himself. And I've lost the joke, yes. Yeah, thank you. Because I've been watching my stuff back recently, for various reasons. And, you know, everyone says, oh, time lashes. And I watched that, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Because, you know, with the distance of 30 years, 30 years since I did that. So it is like watching somebody else. You know, I sort of feel I look like that, but I have to force myself to acknowledge I don't. And so I'm watching somebody else, and I enjoyed the story. You know, television has evolved. You can do so much more now for so much less cost. I'm sure the budget is greater than it was when I did it, but what you can do with that budget has increased 1,000-fold. You know, a Dalek walking across the room took hours to film in my day because the bloody thing kept falling over and you'd hear muffled swearing from inside as the operator ripped himself on a bolt that was sticking through the back of it. Now, someone sits on a computer and does that, and Daleks are flying through the sky, thousands of them coming out of space. It's brilliant. And I envy them, that technology. But what we did with our limited technology still stands up, and I'm proud of it. Thank you.
Right here.
Do you have any good memories of working with Patrick Troughton and Fraser Hines on The Two Doctors?
Yeah, we had a great time. It's the only foreign filming I got when I was doing Doctor Who. We were in Seville in Spain, in 100 degrees, beautiful weather, lovely food, and they lost our makeup and wigs. And they were needed for continuity because we'd been filming in the studio, and this was for the outside shots. So we had 3 days in Seville we couldn't film, first 3 days there. So we were forced to sit by the pool and tell tall stories. My fondest memories, you know that game you play in the swimming pool where somebody sits on your shoulders and there's another couple and you wrestle? Well, we played Doctors and Companions. And I had Nicola Bryant with her legs wrapped around my neck. And Patrick Troughton had Fraser Hines. I won. I wasn't falling over. No, we had a great time. And you know, all of them were lovely people. I was very lucky when I did that show. All the people who came to guest on it were really nice people. And the one thing I was, having been a guest on other people's shows, where sometimes the lead actor of a show won't even bother to say hello to you, I was determined when I was the lead in a show that the atmosphere would be different. So I made sure that even if the guy was in a suit carrying a gun, you know, he felt as much part of it as the Doctor did. So we had a brilliant atmosphere, very light-hearted but concentrated when we did the job. So it was lots of laughing and we got the work done. And it was the best time I've had in my acting life, without question.
Got time for a couple more questions. Right here.
Two-part. One, remember that the first word you said as you were generating to the Doctor for yours.
That's 3 eyes in one sentence, makes you sound a very egotistical young lady. Read that one. Change, my dear, and not a moment too soon. My favourite to film, well, it was probably Two Doctors, because of Pat Troughton, because of working with a man who I respected and revered. And I'd known his son David, because he and I shared a flat together when we were young actors. And I was David's best man when he got married, so I'd known Patrick as the father of my friend, and that was before I knew I was going to play Doctor Who. And suddenly there I was playing Doctor Who, and of all the old doctors to work with, I think he was probably the best one for me, because he was a very open, warm and generous man. And he said nice things about my doctor, which I liked, you know, because you do, I don't know whether the others do now, but I certainly viewed my predecessors with respect and caution. You know, because they might think, this young whippersnapper, who does he think he is? I was always delighted to find, because I worked once with John Pertwee and found him the most charismatic man I've ever met. He would walk into a room and every head, whether they knew he was an actor or not, would turn and look at him, because he had such presence. And we did some strange things called The Stranger, which were in between, when Doctor Who was cancelled, somebody got together, some of the actors, to make things about The Stranger, a character who travels through time and space with his companion, Miss Brown. You know, but it wasn't Berber Gilliam Brown, it was something else Brown, played by Nicola Bryant. You know, so it was quite obvious what it was. And he came to do one of them, and he was lovely to work with, John Pertwee. And it was the same with Pat Troughton. So doing Two Doctors with Pat was, for me, a delight, an honour. Hello, Tom.
If you were
Oh, God, I don't know. Probably you. Which tastes like flavoured car tyres. Jelly babies are so far removed from food. They're vile. And bless your hearts, you dear people, you offer them to me all the time. I can't bear them. Now, offer me a chocolate truffle, now you're talking. But experience has taught me that Tom prefers to be a solo act. A lovely man, but he's a lone flyer, without question. I think I'd find it very difficult to work with him.
And I'll take one more. Right here.
Paul, I don't suppose you want to be offered carrot juice then.
Oh, I love carrot juice. Yeah, people bring me carrot juice sometimes. I like it. Carrot juice is really nice. Yeah.
Following up on that earlier discussion about the unpopularity that ensued with your doctor, in part because of the Twin Dilemma. I had forgotten that the Twin Dilemma didn't air with all your other episodes.
No.
But if it had, if they had actually pushed that episode to start the next season and aired that in conjunction with all the rest, do you think that might have made any sort of difference ultimately in how your doctor was proceeding?
It might have done. I mean, most of the people now who talk about my doctor are not people who were watching it back then. And the people who answer polls in Doctor Who magazine are long-term fans usually. So we may be looking at the past. But I think the fact that there was something like 6 months between people seeing me as he's not a doctor, I don't like him, before I turned into, oh, he's all right. Yeah, he is a doctor. Might have, yes, it might have kind of prejudiced their ability to view me dispassionately later. And then there was the fact of the hiatus when Michael Gray came and cancelled the programme. The person who gets the most publicity about that is the actor who played the part. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, sadly. It's become clear later on that the animosity against the programme at the BBC had been going on for a long time. They felt embarrassed that they were still doing a programme that was started in 1963. And all those producers at the B wanted to be getting the credit for doing a new programme of their own invention, not carrying on doing something that somebody else had started. So there wasn't a great feeling of love for the show within the BBC. And everyone kept hoping it would go away. And the fact that it was earning more money than any other programme, even when it was at its most unpopular, didn't seem to affect them. And also, they kept saying the viewing figures were terrible. They're just the same as the viewing figures now, which everyone is saying is wonderful. All you have to do is say, the viewing figures are terrible. People will listen to that. If you actually look at them, they were no worse than before or after.
And it was ironic because you actually stated that you would love playing the doctor for as long as you possibly could.
Yeah.
Given the opportunity. It was ironic that they
I know. That's life.
And with that,
as
Mr.
Baker
Baker
goes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's all right.
With
Audrey, you've been lovely. Isn't Audrey the name of the killer plant?
Yes. Audrey too.
Audrey too.
Love ya.